I never thought I would tell anyone this story, but now, almost 10 years later, I think, maybe I should let it out. Not because I need someone to believe me, but because some nights, when I'm alone in the tractor shed, fixing machines, I still remember it. Clear as day, every detail, every smell, every step. Back then, I wasn't a full-time farmer yet. I was still paying off the land, so I worked night shifts at a meat packing plant about 30 miles from the farm. It wasn't a fancy job, just lifting, checking boxes, cleaning up. But it paid by the hour and had insurance. My shift was usually from 7 in the evening to 3 in the morning, every Friday to Sunday. Every night was the same. Loud machines, heavy meat, that strong, bloody smell that sticks to your clothes. Nobody liked the work, but I needed the money. That week was normal. Until that night. I remember it clearly. It was a Saturday, a rainy night. Not heavy rain, just enough to soak the ground in front of the plant. I got there at 6:45 like always. Wore my raincoat, boots, and a cap pulled low. That night there were only 3 of us. Me, Frank, an older guy from Oklahoma who'd worked there for years, and Deshaun, a young black man in his 20s who just started a few weeks ago. We didn't talk much. Each of us worked in a different area. Finish your section, check the storage in the morning, go home. That night, I was assigned to clean the freezer section. It was big and freezing cold, even with gloves. Boxes of frozen meat stacked taller than me. The lights were dim, so I wore a headlamp. My job was to check for leaks, melting ice, or rats. Clean up, take notes, and report any problems. I started at 8. Had an AM radio playing from a truck parked outside. Everything was normal until about 9:30. I saw a box at the end of the aisle that was out of place. It wasn't on the checklist. That was strange. There weren't supposed to be any new deliveries on weekends. I walked over. The box was torn on one side. The tape was coming loose. I bent down and shined my light inside. It wasn't meat. It was a dark green trash bag, the kind people use for garbage or old clothes. But this one was tied shut, very tight, almost like with electrical wire. There was a smell. Not meat, not garbage. Just awful. Sharp. Wet. It made me step back. I didn't open the bag. I figured maybe someone threw old stuff in by mistake. I marked the box and planned to tell Frank. He was the one who wrote the final report each night. But as I turned to leave the aisle, I heard something. A sharp tapping sound, like fingernails on plastic. Then silence. I froze, listened again. Nothing. Just the fans blowing. I turned my light back toward the bag. It hadn't moved. Still lying there. I left the freezer to find Frank, but he wasn't in the control room. I asked Deshaun. He hadn't seen Frank either. It was almost 10. Maybe Frank went to check the back storage area. It had leaky pipes sometimes. Later, I went back to the freezer. The bag was gone. I stood there, frozen. I knew where I had seen it, right next to the third wall on the left, near the path. No way I was wrong. I looked all around. No drag marks, no water. The bag had just vanished. My heart started racing. Not fear, just confusion. Maybe Frank saw the note and took the bag, but where was he? No one answered the radio. I searched the back area. It was damp, cold, and quiet. When I walked past the end of one aisle, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, I turned. No one there. I felt it then. Something wasn't right. I went back to the control room. Frank wasn't there. The desk lamp was still on. His coffee was still warm. It was close to 11. Deshaun and I started to worry. We called security. They hadn't seen Frank either. He never left through the gate. I returned to the freezer. Something told me to. Maybe I thought Frank had passed out. He had high blood pressure and it was freezing in there. I checked every aisle. Nothing. Then I passed by the bio-waste room. It's a small room behind the freezer where they throw out bad meat. The door was open, dark inside. I pushed the door. The green bag was on the floor, but this time it was torn open. Inside, nothing. Just a long trail of dried blood. It went from the bag to behind some metal bins. I didn't go further. I'm no hero. I backed out, shut the door, and radioed Deshawn, told him to leave and call the police. They arrived around midnight, searched the plant, checked the cameras. All the footage from 9:20 to 10:50 was gone. Signal error. Black screen. Frank was never found. No signs of struggle. No proof of a crime. The police called it missing with no clear cause. They searched everywhere. Trash rooms, freezer, drainage ditches. Nothing. The bag was gone too. When they went back to the waste room, it had vanished. No blood, no wires, like nothing ever happened. I quit 2 weeks later. I didn't tell my wife or kids. Just said I wanted to focus on the farm. But the truth is, I couldn't go back there. I heard the plant still runs. New people took over the night shift. Nobody talks about Frank. Nobody wants to. Sometimes, when the rain comes down hard, I remember that smell. From the bag. It wasn't meat, wasn't trash, wasn't anything I knew. And I still wonder, should I have opened the bag that night? Or maybe the real question is, if I had opened it, would I still be alive to tell this story? My first night shift started in the middle of August. It was hot as hell outside, but inside the diner it was freezing, like the old air conditioner was trying to prove a point. I was scheduled from 10 at night to 6 in the morning at a small roadside diner, one of those humble places truckers stop by. The owner was a kind Jamaican man named Richie. He liked telling stories from back in the day and always had reggae music playing when things were slow. At first I thought, night shift's probably chill, not many customers, I can do homework or scroll TikTok. But after just 1 week, something started to feel off. That night was a Thursday. From around 11 to a little after 1, the place was quiet, just a few drivers grabbing coffee. I was behind the counter, drying glasses, when a man walked in. The first thing I noticed, he was wearing a thick winter coat, the kind you only see in January, even though it was about 80 degrees and humid outside. I figured he might be homeless, or maybe struggling mentally. I've heard some people wear winter clothes all year. Sometimes it's all they own. He didn't look at me, just scanned the room and picked a table in the dark corner near the back door, where no one usually sat because it was close to the trash area. I walked over, just doing my usual. "Hey there, what can I get you?" He looked up at me. His eyes were empty. Not drunk or sleepy, just blank. Like he was studying me. He stayed silent for a few seconds, then finally said, "Just a glass of water." All right, maybe he just needed a place to rest. No problem. I brought him the water and figured if he didn't order anything else in a few minutes, I'd check in again. About 20 minutes passed, just me and him in the diner. I turned on some quiet music to break the heavy silence. Every time I glanced over, he was still there, sitting still, staring at the back door like he was waiting for someone. I started to feel uneasy. I texted my best friend. "This guy's giving me weird vibes. Been staring into the dark for like half an hour." She texted back, Be careful. If anything feels off, hide behind the counter and lock the doors. I laughed a little, but inside I felt cold. The back door is usually locked, always, but somehow that night it creaked open, a soft squeak, and then shut again, like the wind had pushed it. The man turned his head toward the door, then looked at me, and for the first time he smiled. I stepped out from behind the counter, trying to act normal as I headed toward the door, but my mind was racing, figuring out what to do if I had to run. The door was open just a crack, nobody outside, at least I didn't see anyone. I closed it and locked it again. When I turned back, he was still sitting there. The smile was gone. We had an iPad to take delivery orders. Just then, I heard a ping, a new order, but nothing showed up. Another ping, still nothing. I checked both apps. The screen just said, no active orders. Maybe it was a glitch. Sometimes you get fake pings when someone messes with the system, but at that moment, I felt something was off, not just a tech issue. Right then, the man stood up. No words, no rush. He just walked toward the back door, the same one I had just locked. I stood still behind the counter. He tugged the door. Locked. Then he looked up, straight at the security camera on the ceiling. It was like he knew every corner of this place. Like he knew where the camera was, knew I was watching. Then suddenly, he turned around and walked quickly toward the counter, not running, but faster than before. My hands were shaking. I reached under the counter and grabbed the pepper spray Richie kept just in case. My heart was pounding. The man stopped, just a few steps away. His eyes weren't blank anymore. They looked confused, or maybe sad. I left my phone at my friend's house. Thought he was bringing it here. His voice was quiet, but clear. You can't go back there. That's a storage area. Customers aren't allowed, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at me a few seconds, then turned around and walked out. Never looked back. After he left, I stayed frozen behind the counter. Then I called 911 and told them everything. Cops showed up about 20 minutes later. They watched the security footage. Nothing too strange, just a quiet man sitting, looking around, then leaving. But when they checked the back door, the lock had fresh scratch marks, like someone had tried to pry it open. One officer leaned in and whispered while his partner checked the alley. Maybe he was waiting for someone else to come in from the back. If you hadn't locked it, this could have ended very differently. I quit the night shift after that. I couldn't do it anymore. It never made the news. No big headlines. Just an 18-year-old girl, working nights, who met a strange man. But a few days later, while walking home around 6 in the evening, I noticed a white van parked a few houses down. Someone inside was watching me, then drove away when I looked back. Can't say for sure it was him. Can't prove anyone was following me. Nothing really happened, technically. But ever since that night, I always check over my shoulder. Never wear headphones when walking alone. And I've never taken another night shift. That's it. No real ending. Just that feeling, like something cold breathing down your neck. There were no ghosts, no floating white shadows, but I've never forgotten it. Since that night, I've never walked alone late at night again, especially not after a night shift at school. At the time, I worked in the school kitchen. They had this thing called the weekend food drive. Basically, we'd cook meals for kids from low-income families so they had something to eat over the weekend. It was voluntary. No one forced us to do it. But I felt bad for those kids, so I signed up to work Friday nights, from 5 in the evening until nearly 11. Usually there were a few of us in the kitchen, but that night, everyone was busy. It was just me and a young night security guard named Miguel. Nice kid, quiet voice, but he often walked patrol around the school, so for the most part, I was alone in the kitchen. Around 10, I was washing trays when Miguel poked his head in and said, "Miss Rosa, I'm going to check the back gate. Someone reported the lock might be loose. I nodded. Be careful, okay? A few minutes later, the kitchen lights started flickering. The school's wiring was ancient, probably from the time the place was built, so it always acted up. But this time the lights didn't just flicker. They went out completely, pitch black. There weren't any windows in the kitchen, so there was zero light. I stood still, hands still wet with soapy water, heart pounding. My eyes weren't used to the dark yet, so I reached into my apron pocket, pulled out my phone, and turned on the flashlight. A narrow beam of light lit the space in front of me. I stepped out of the dish area and called out, "Miguel, are you still out there?" The power just went out. No answer. I slowly walked down the hallway that led to the back door, the one that opened out to the schoolyard. My flashlight passed over the metal prep tables and stopped. Someone was standing behind the glass door. Not moving, totally still. At first I thought it was Miguel, but the figure was taller, broader shoulders, and not wearing a security uniform. Whoever it was just standing there, staring through the glass, not knocking, not waving, not doing anything. I stepped back, my heart was pounding harder. I called out, "Miguel, that's not funny." The man didn't answer. I pointed the flashlight at his face and saw a stranger. He had a bony face, long greasy hair, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. He wore a filthy, wrinkled hoodie that looked like it hadn't been washed in a week. When the light hit him, he tilted his head down and smiled. Not a big grin, not loud, just a soft, silent smile, but it made my skin crawl. I turned and ran to the kitchen phone, no dial tone. I pulled out my personal phone, no signal. That happened sometimes when storms were coming. The signal in the school got really weak. When I turned back toward the glass door, he was gone. I didn't dare open anything. I locked the door from the inside and backed away toward the emergency exit. There was one by the far corner that led straight to the parking lot. It only opened from the inside. That would be my way out if I needed it. I crouched near the door, clutching my phone, trying to steady my breathing. A few moments passed. Then I heard a sound, very faint, like wind, or fingernails brushing metal. I leaned in to listen. There were footsteps, but not in the yard. On the roof. I thought maybe I was imagining it, but the sound was real. Thump, thump, scratch. Could he have climbed up there? My heart was racing. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. I quickly typed a message to my son on WhatsApp. "I'm in the school kitchen. There's a stranger outside. No signal. If you get this, call the police. Urgent." I hit send, turned off the screen, and didn't dare use the flashlight again. My eyes had started adjusting to the dark. I reached into the nearby drawer and grabbed a fruit knife. Small, but sharp. Not much of a weapon, but it made my hands feel less empty. The digital clock on the microwave blinked, 10:24 p.m. I started to worry about Miguel. He'd been gone a long time. Then, I heard a soft click at the back door. I turned quickly. The doorknob was turning, slowly. Someone was trying to open it. Luckily, the deadbolt was locked, but I had no idea how long it would hold. Then footsteps again, circling the yard. Then a metallic scratching. Someone trying a different door down the hallway. I held my breath. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. Suddenly, the lights came back on. Bright fluorescent light flashed overhead, making me squint. And then I heard a voice calling, "Ms. Rosa, are you still in there?" It was Miguel. I almost cried, ran out and saw him standing there with a flashlight, looking worried. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I got stuck at the back gate. The lock jammed from the rust. While I was trying to fix it, the power went out. When I got around front, I saw footprints in the grass." I pulled him inside and told him everything. showed him where the man had been standing. Miguel immediately called the police. While we waited, he checked around the school. There were muddy footprints in the grass, leading right up to the wall. Part of the fence had been bent, just enough for someone to slip through. There were scrape marks on the roof, like someone had crawled over it. The police arrived just before midnight. They didn't catch anyone, but they confirmed there had been signs of forced entry. They said it might have been a homeless man, or someone known for petty theft in school districts. They couldn't say for sure. So what happened after? The school replaced the locks, installed new cameras, added more night guards. But they never found that man. No one knows who he was, or why he just stood there, staring and smiling. I couldn't sleep for a week. Every time I heard a creak on the roof or saw a flickering light, I jumped. My son made me install Life 360. Now every night he texts me, "Where are you, Mom? Are you home yet?" Since that night, I've never worked a night shift alone, and I always carry pepper spray in my purse. Even just going to the store. Even now, telling this story, I've got goosebumps. You don't need ghosts or demons. Just one person, one stranger, who shows up when the lights go out, and that's enough to haunt you forever.